Hello, everyone. I'm Mystery.
And I am Bolton Mortimer the Authenticator, and we are the duality of man. That debate, though, is really all that needs to be said. Um,
Yeah,
Also, a hearty round of I told you so's from all of us that saw the writing on the wall with Corpse Take Your Biden and all the mainstream media asshats that didn't recognize it until it was too late. And now it's too late.
I mean, I don't think it's not that they didn't recognize it. I think it's the fact that they actively covered it up, and now that it's no longer, you know, something that can be hidden, they're trying to cover their asses and say, "Oh, like, oh, we're finding this so surprising. We noticed now just the same as everybody else." Like, no, everybody else could have seen it before, but you were
Yeah,
gaslighting everyone.
we've noticed since before he was even in office. That's why everyone was so surprised when the election, which cannot be questioned, happened.
Yeah, and
Never
even
mind the 4 years
the
of Russia, Pissgate dossier, Trump Russia possible collusion that happened before that, and totally not the same thing as the MAGA Republicans doing the same thing for these ensuing 4 years. But whatever, we're not allowed
not
to
to,
question these things. We're on YouTube.
I mean, that's not even questioning the smelling of little children falling up the stairs and all the numerous other gaffes that happened during his administration.
And yes, we know he always had a stutter. But you know what? There's actual footage of him from the 50 years that he was a senator before this nonsense. And this ain't no stutter, ladies and gentlemen. This is full tilt. The lights are on, but no one is home. Levels of bullshit.
All right, so you got the video up. I'm gonna hit play.
The floor recognizes Tim Pool. Take it away, Meanie Beanie.
The Democrats are staging a coup against their duly elected nominee. I will stress that right now. The news breaking is that Democrats are not seeing confidence in Joe Biden after this George Stephanopoulos interview. They want him to step down. Donors are saying they will not give money to the Democratic Party if Joe Biden is the nominee. Recently, a phone call was had with top Democrat leadership in the House, and they said, get off the ticket to Joe Biden.
But I gotta see. It's honestly a bit of Schadenfreude watching their party implode like this.
Well, it's and by the way, speaking as the token lefty on this stream, it is Schadenfreude whether you're left or right because I'm one of those motherfuckers that was thinking to himself, why don't they run Bernie instead of Hillary way back in 2016? And then of course Bernie cucked and then ran again and cucked again, but details. The point being, whether you're right or left, the establishment wing of both parties have done everything in their power to avoid addressing their own voter base as long as possible and in as many ways as possible for more than a decade now. And it's
I mean,
insufferable.
I mean that's absolutely true, especially when the issue of AIDS comes up. Because here's the thing: Biden's not the only old guy in politics. I mean, if you question Biden's age to be the president, people are going to start questioning other people's ages to be in things like Congress and maybe even the Supreme Court. And when that starts going, a lot of these old people might get nervous about potentially losing their positions.
Only 4% of all the elected politicians are below the age of 40. And more than 60% of all the politicians are above the age of 60. And that number, that proportion goes up higher the more important and influential the position we're talking about is. More than, I think it's like between 4 and 6 people, 4 and 6 politicians are 80 fucking 9. I don't know if that does or does not include Dianne Feinstein before she finally stepped down. But point being,
I mean, I'm pretty sure she died in office.
yeah, no matter what political forces you do or don't believe in, no matter what political models you do or don't believe in, sooner or later, the enemy of the political establishment is going to be simple, implacable time, because the Reaper Man is going to call in his chips sooner or later. And given that, like, 50% of all the material wealth currently available in the Western world is owned by the baby boomer generation, the youngest of which are 60 as of this year, and the oldest of which are 78 as of this year, sooner or later, the dominoes are going to fall, and the gerontocracy is going to crumble, and that wealth is going to go back into circulation one way or the other. I'd rather it be sooner than later for everyone's health and everyone's betterment, but it very much seems like everyone who is a boomer or older than a boomer is trying by their, the nails on their fingernails to keep a hold of all the power and all the wealth they possibly can at this point.
I mean, thinking about it, I mean, when these people have been in Congress for as long as they have, I feel that they've done enough kickbacks and insider trading to have more money than they need. I mean, at this point, why not just ride off into the sunset with your ill-gotten gains?
Well,
Are they that obsessed with power that they're still clinging on even to the point of death?
Well, it's also because they cling on to power for the sake of what they consider to be political norms. What we have here, and I've noticed this recently, is basically a defense of the post-war consensus, the consensus that was born after the end of the Second World War and into the beginning of the Cold War. And it's not surprising to me that most of the oldest politicians today are either the people who put that post-war consensus in place, or the first children of the people who put that post-war consensus in place. And it's also not surprising to me how many grassroots forces there are begging for a populist libertarian paradigm shift of some description. Because the post-war consensus is literally a century old now, if not more. If you push it back to the beginning of the First World War, then it is literally over a century old now. And it's not surprising to me that the people who are the most involved in politics and the most dedicated to establishment and political norms and normative institutionalism are the people who either put the post-war consensus into place or the inheritors of the people who put the post-war consensus into place. But here's the thing. As a general rule, political paradigms only last as long as the people who put them into place, as a general rule. And I think I speak for everyone when I say the post-war consensus is about as geriatric as the people who put it into place. Can we get a paradigm shift already?
Yes, I mean, geopolitics have changed. I mean, everybody's so obsessed with Russia, these old guys in Congress, but Russia is really not our biggest enemy right now. China is the biggest player that we have to contend with on the world stage, but all the focus seems to, be on Russia. And let's not ignore the fact that our president and probably many other people in Congress have ties to Russia. And like we've seen, like from the now confirmed Hunter Biden laptop, that Joe Biden and his son have had multiple meetings with companies from China.
And if we're entirely honest with ourselves, both Russia and China are dilapidated paper tigers that we could very easily deal with if we were in a competent political paradigm. But we're not in a competent political paradigm, and so we're taking these paper tigers, and we're in such a fragile, dilapidated state ourselves that even these paper tigers that would be child's play to deal with under normal circumstances are actual meaningful threats. Now, we could resolve this by ditching the post-war consensus and advocating for a new paradigm and a new consensus, but again, only 4% of all currently serving politicians are below the age of 40. And like 60% of them are over the age of 60. So you could guess how well altering the post-war consensus goes over with these people. Anyway,
I'm going to hit play.
we should continue with Tim Pool. Take it away, Tim.
And Joe Biden said, make no mistake, I am the nominee. I will not step down. This is interesting. Joe Biden is the duly elected nominee. Now, to be fair, the argument they're going to make is no, not until the convention when the delegates actually cast their votes. So the will of the people be damned. This is fascinating because even if they want to make the argument that Joe Biden is only the nominee after the convention, what they're basically saying is the popular vote don't count. Let me stress that they had a primary, Joe Biden won. And now wealthy elites are trying to boot him from the ticket. I say Joe Biden is our nominee. I have been the staunchest Joe Biden supporter. You know, he's sharp as ever. He must remain on the ticket.
Wait, that's the thing. Like they want to remove him, but he was duly elected. If they remove him and replace him with somebody else, that would be a subversion of democracy in the Democratic Party, who constantly remind us how important.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind the people swearing up and down like it's a sacred phrase, our democracy.
I mean, but it's not about democracy. It's about winning.
Well, but no, it's not even that Machiavellian. They do mean our democracy. Emphasis being on the hour referring not to any conglomeration of the plebs or the populace, because we know what they think of populism now, don't we? When they say our democracy, they literally mean we, the newly minted aristocrats, we, the managerial class, we, the oligarchy, etc., ad nauseum. That's why I always get cagey whenever the pronoun our gets added to democracy, because our democracy translates to the democracy of the valid people, and another way of phrasing democracy of the valid people is the good old-fashioned aristocracy, which is how it actually works, or it seems to work, because we know what they think of populism and libertarianism now, don't we? They would rather be shot in the head 10 times than ever allow a populist or a libertarian to do a goddamn thing on either side of the political spectrum.
All right, will it play again?
Yep.
All right, well, here's what's really going on. Joe Biden's polling is collapsing. We got new updates. It's just getting worse. The Democrats are right to want someone else on the ticket. But my question then is, what the is going on? The media lied to cover up for Joe Biden the whole time. Why do a debate at all? They didn't have to.
Correct.
Democrats could have played their game where they said, Donald Trump is a liar and we're not going to do a debate with him. And that's it.
Because they wanted they wanted the leverage of making Trump look bad, because they thought they could bureaucratically arrange for a Trump trap. But they're too ivory tower and too self-insular to realize where the actual winds of change are actually blowing, and they essentially placed all their chips on we are the moral betters of this situation, not realizing that nobody cares about who or who isn't the moral better, because moral betterment isn't the fucking point.
Here's the thing. I think the debate, or at least the idea of the debate, was supposed to be a bluff. Because here's the thing, they set the rules up in such a way that it would have appeared that Trump would be at a massive disadvantage. Like,
to be a trap.
They're not being an audience. Yeah, they're not being an audience, which Trump tends to play to the audience. And
they tried to Uno reverse him, and Trump just Uno reversed them right back. And here we are.
Yeah, like the people who hosted the debate, like two anchors from CNN, have been very, very hostile to Trump over the years. It was basically a trap, and Trump said, "Okay, I'll do it anyway." And when Biden actually had to go up and perform on the debate stage, he completely fumbled the ball.
It's literally like something out of an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! You activated my trump card, rigged debate, and you activated my counter trump card. I don't give a fuck. And now here we are.
The thing is, like, it really was disgusting, like how Biden lied on the debate stage. The people are going on about, oh, Trump lied throughout the debate. He lied. Well, a lot of the things that people are claiming he lied about were really like
rhetorical hyperbole, basically.
Yeah, like his he's like fact may have been wrong, but like the gist of what he was saying is absolutely correct. Like I believe this was mentioned by Short Fat Otaku. I just find Dev fucking annoying. I swear to God. Whenever he's talking
But
about Trump, I swear his IQ points drop by about 10
well,
points.
I think what it is, and I mentioned this on a video that was responding to Dev, and I think I also mentioned it on a video where I got into it with Dev on the topic of the debate. Dev has a pro-normative institution bias. He has a blind spot where normative institutions are concerned. And from watching a lot of his old videos, the rationale in his head seems to be if we take away the authority of normative institutions, then the only natural end result of that will be a Weimar Germany anarchy situation. That seems to be his rationale. It doesn't seem to occur to him that paradigms can change because they become too dilapidated or too bureaucratic to function. It doesn't seem to occur to him that a new paradigm can replace a previously dead paradigm without resulting in anarchy. It doesn't seem to occur to him that anarchy can be temporary during the transition of paradigms, et cetera, and so on. So basically, everything in Dev's brain switches off whenever the topic of normative institutions come up. That seems to be the thing, because he can analyze with the best of them whenever it's not about or not whenever normative institutions aren't at stake. But you put something anti-normative or anti-institutionalist there, and his brain just switches off, because normative institution is the only alternative to Weimar Germany anarchy, apparently, in his head.
The institutions are not worth a damn if they aren't performing the function that they were created to perform.
Yeah,
Like I
if
see a
they're
lot
not
of people
if they're not fit for purpose, if the Overton window is shattered effectively, then it needs to shift. Like
like I've seen a lot of people talking about Trump's plan to basically get rid of or gut the the Department of Education, and they were like, oh, I can't believe this. Like the Department of Education, like we need this for our kids. They're like, no, we don't, because the Department of Education is trash. And currently, with the Department of Education as it currently stands, we have people out here graduating freaking high school who are functionally illiterate. We have people
yeah,
out here
it's
who can't read but are also able to vote. Like the Department of Education is not accomplishing what it was created to accomplish.
it's not actually fit for purpose. And again, we see here a conflation between it's almost like a conflation of you can't have you can't have meaningful education without an institution for education, almost like without a department for education. That's tantamount to deleting the possibility of any actual education existing. It's as though the institution meant to create a thing and the thing it's meant to create are the same thing in these people's minds. Again,
What do
the
you think?
blind spot
Like,
of normative institutions, derp. Never mind
like
that
it's
you
not
can
just
develop
it's
new norms and new institutions within a new paradigm, and your sacred centrism can still be a thing. It just needs to be the center of a different paradigm. Like you can just go from the center of this set of institutions to the center of the next set of institutions, and nothing meaningful will have transpired against you or anything. But again, apparently not. Apparently, according to people like Dev, and Dev is the quintessential example of this, the only two options that they can conceive of is either normative institutions or Weimar Germany levels of anarchy. No such thing as a new paradigm, no such thing as new norms or new institutions replacing dilapidated ones, apparently. No such
so
thing as
the thing
finding a
about
new center in a new paradigm or anything. It's ridiculous.
dude, let me talk.
Sorry.
All right. So the thing about these institutions, especially these government institutions, are that one in America they really weren't supposed to really exist the way that they do. These massive overarching institutions that basically lord over individual states. And regarding the Department of Education, like people educated themselves before such a thing as government, departments of education or institutions really even existed. Like people being responsible for their own education is something that existed for literally millennia. And if the government-run institutions are failing at their job to educate people to the point where they can't even read, I
or being
really don't
actively
think that,
counterproductive to it.
yeah, I really don't think that we need to, hold these things so quote unquote sacred that we're willing to let an entire generation have a detriment to their ability to, function and learn just to protect the institution itself.
The sad thing is, people like Dev will point at the idea of a competency crisis and say it's not a problem with the institutions, it's a competency crisis. To which my response is, where do you think the competency crisis is coming from? Where do you think the circumstances that led to this competency crisis were begat from in the first place? Answer: when the institutions became too bureaucratic, too managerial, and too overblown to be useful for their own good. That is what led to the creation of the competency crisis in the first place. You're looking at something that is symptomatic of another thing and completely ignoring the other thing it's symptomatic of.
Yeah, I mean, a few weeks ago we covered the NYU Galentine majors and concentrations for the recent graduates. Like, considering that some of those things were really some of the most ridiculous college education courses and programs that I'd ever heard, you think that's not going to cause a competency crisis?
No, never mind that the institution is already incompetent if it led to the creation of such things in the first place. So it's just a downward spiral of increasing levels of competency crisis the whole while long. And meanwhile, all of the meaningful intellectuals are drawn to like anti-establishment perspectives because the establishment itself is no longer fit for purpose. But again, a reasonable centrist, a reasonable version of Dev from Short Fat Otaku would go, okay, the norms and institutions are clearly no longer fit for purpose. I'm going to advocate for a new paradigm where I can then be the center of that, wherein I can then take up the center position in that new paradigm. But again, apparently Dev thinks that if we undermine the authority of monormative institutions, the only result will be Weimar Germany levels of anarchy, allegedly.
I'm gonna hit play.
Yep.
Going to lose in the polls because they would avoid the debate? Well, they put Joe Biden on that stage, and he failed miserably. And now all of the leadership is basically saying, get him out. Even his former staffers are like, you're done, Joe. You watch videos from Joe Biden 4 years ago. He is a different person. His decline is rapid, and it's alarming. But we got a lot to break down coming off this holiday weekend. I hope you all enjoyed your 4th of July weekend and have put up your American flags in celebration of MAGA month. Hope that one triggers all the lefty weirdos who hate America. But the New York Post, coming in with the editorial report as updated this morning, Democrats are going to get Biden off the ticket. Now, of course, when you look at the polling, and let's do that first. Let's jump right into the polls because
Let me ask you: do you think they will actually be able to get him on?
Okay, first of all, no. The entire Biden family and everyone who is capable of speaking for or with Joe is saying that he intends to stick it out to the bitter end. And I gotta give it to him or whoever is informing his decision here that there's at least something respectable about, no, I'm going to go down with the ship, goddammit. But
You want to hear something funny?
sure.
One of the people who is convincing Joe Biden to stay in the race and is basically acting as the go-between Joe Biden and essentially the rest of the world is his son, Hunter Biden, who we were assured by all the news media and the Democrats had nothing to do with Joe Biden's administration.
We also were assured by all of the mainstream media and everything that he was apparently a felon now because of the whole white powder in the White House thing there, but glad to see that the judicial wing of the government saw fit to give him little more than a slap on the wrist, while treating Trump like the devil for essentially a minor misdemeanor that had to be trumped up to the level of a felony in the first fucking place. That totally doesn't indicate any sort of political bias or anything. Herp derp derp. But there's the other thing, and the secondary elephant in the room that I was going to mention was, even if they managed to get Biden off the ticket, who the hell are they going to run? Because we did this last time. We did this in 2020, and apparently all of the other like mainstream Democrat politicians were less preferable than Biden, or at the very least they were willing to essentially throw their lot in being represented by Biden, because apparently Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard were tack-theored from the discussion, even though they were the most likable politicians that were currently running. Even somebody more mainstream like Buttigieg was essentially written off as a non-starter. Kamala nuked herself by falling victim to Tulsi Gabbard's your own record no jitsu, and basically everyone else was a complete non-entity up to and including Mike Bloomberg, who honestly, if I were a establishment Democrat, which I'm not, I'm far more lefty than most establishment Democrats, but apparently not lefty enough for most of the like Twitch left. But if I were a establishment Democrat, I would be opting for Mike Bloomberg, because then it would be one bombastic billionaire versus another, and you might be able to get somebody who could go toe to toe with Trump with regards to banter and stuff, which is Trump's strongest suit.
Well, here's the thing. Like, earlier in the year, they had a chance of doing a genuine Democrat primary, but even though we've actually been seeing these signs for the past 4 years, they decided to still go with Biden and not even give any of the other potential candidates a chance. And if they wanted to get Biden out, they should have convinced him to get out before the primary, convinced him to be a one-term president. And then he could have stepped down with dignity instead of this absolute embarrassment.
Yeah. But again, honestly, who else is there? Because the newest Kennedy there ran as an independent. He would have probably been the correct choice, but he ran as an independent. Bernie's not running again, and he's been cucked so many times that people wouldn't vote for him even if he did. Andrew Yang left the Democratic Party, so did Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is now within a decent shot of being Trump's running mate, for God's sakes. Which, by the way, if Trump, if you're listening to this, if you run with Tulsi Gabbard, you have my vote automatically. Even though I'm more to the left than you, even though I'm generally more of a social democrat than most of the MAGA movement, you run with Tulsi Gabbard, you have my vote. I'm just going to say that.
Well, I would want Trump to pick Tulsi Gabbard simply to watch the vice presidential debates.
the repeat of the your own record no jitsu maneuver would be amazing. Yeah, the nuking of Kamala, the fucking scalping of Kamala, for God's sake. I would pay to see it. I would pay pay-per-view prices just to see that. Oh my god.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if Biden presumably does drop out, Kamala, being the vice president, would almost certainly take up his position as the nominee. But Kamala is still extremely unlikable. But the polls say that she would do worse than Biden in a matchup against Donald Trump.
Yeah, she peaked in the 2020 primaries at 15%, and she only lasted in that 15% range for a week. And then the famous Tulsi Gabbard your own record maneuver happened, and she dropped from 15% to 3% in the polls within her own party. So there is no force on this earth. There is no supernatural force that I am aware of that could make this woman likable or engaging enough to actually win. Ever.
I would say that her position has actually gotten weaker in the intervening 4 years, because over the course of her term as vice president, she has shown herself to be unknowledgeable, and deeply unlikable. Like I'd say she is in a worse position than she was back in 20 2020.
I'm going to say something controversial here, and I don't say this lightly. I think Kamala Harris might be one of the few people on this planet who I would consider less likable than Hillary Clinton at this point.
Oh, so like I agree, they're both extremely unlikable. But what puts Kamala over Hillary for you?
I think it's just the active, like, spiteful joy she has in being contemptuous to people that she should be in favor of. Like, the story that epitomizes her in my head is she, as the Attorney General of California in 2012, laughed in someone's face when they wanted to be paroled for a minor drug offense. And she laughed openly about legalizing marijuana in California in 2012. And even after she got scalped by Tulsi Gabbard, she was gloating over Tulsi Gabbard because Tulsi had less mainstream appeal than she did. One would think that someone somewhere should have told her that at this point having mainstream appeal isn't a badge of honor. It is in fact a badge of shame. But apparently, in Kamala's mind, that's a reason to spitefully laugh in someone's face. Someone who just BTFO'd you for all of the interested parties to see, but whatever. Whereas, like, Hillary at least has some veneer of like old school professionalism. As annoying as old school professionalism is, I prefer old school professionalism over active, spiteful, gleeful contempt for everyone who is quote unquote beneath you. Because Hillary at least tries to be likable. She tries to play the politics game. She's just abysmally bad. Kamala thinks that even playing the likability game is beneath her, it seems.
Thinking about it, it's a bit like a criminal who pretend to be your friend and then stab you in the back, and a criminal who gleefully laughs in the face because they point a gun at you.
Yeah, now, mind you, I don't consider either of them to be likable. I would gladly see both of them executed on live TV in a world that made sense. But if if it's a choice between being shot in the heart or shot in the groin, I know which one I'm going for.
Yeah, let me get plugging.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to blow your mind. 538 that normally shows polls favoring Democrats has Donald Trump up 2.3 points. So of course, the New York Post is correct when they say they've got to get Joe Biden off. Here we go. We've got Trump up 5. Let's just do this. July, we got Signal, 2 polls, Trump up 5. When they include Kennedy, West, and Stein, Trump is still up 5. Daily Mail has Trump up 5. Against Harris, he goes up 11 points because she's next in line. I wonder, is she still the front runner? I think she is. Let's see. Let's go to Predict It and see. Okay, so Kamala Harris is no longer the front runner over on Predict It. Sorry, Kamala, you were, but you're not anymore. So we've got Trump with Kennedy, West, Stein, and Oliver. Oh, that's funny. And that puts Trump up 6 points. Reuters has Trump up 8 against Pritzker, Whitmer, Bashir, and Newsom. He's up 6, and 4 points. Now, here's the interesting one. When Reuters put Michelle Obama on the poll, Michelle Obama is up 12 points. And I think that may be the play. A lot of people have been saying it. We've mentioned before a lot of people saying, yeah, but Michelle Obama doesn't want to run. She doesn't want to do it. None of that means anything. None of that means anything. Whether she does or does not doesn't matter. You got another Reuters poll. Michelle Obama up 11 points, July 1st or the 2nd. Now, while Trump dominates across the board against everyone, the polls say he won't beat Michelle Obama. Take a look at this from the 2024 general election RCP, Real Clear Polling Average. Trump is up 3.3 points. Now, I will tell you this. I'm not absolutely convinced Michelle Obama could win against Donald Trump. These polls say one thing, and a lot of people are pointing out like, oh, but Michelle Obama, she's an Obama, she's popular, she'll get the diversity vote, like the leftist, the woke vote. And
Okay.
I mean, I've seen Michelle Obama say multiple times she doesn't want to run.
Yeah, and if she did, it would there would be the bombshell of, is she actually making the decisions, or is this just another Barack presidency secretly? Because there's always been this motif of the first lady, or in this case, the first man, or I guess the first lord, sort of puppeteering their husband, or at least consulting on their political decisions. I mean, we all thought that with Hillary. We all thought that Hillary was essentially using Bill as a Jeff Dunham puppet, and I still have yet to see that meaningfully disputed. So there's that gray area of, would we essentially just be getting a third and fourth Obama presidency if that happened? But at least she has the theoretical likability advantage over him. I don't think that would last, because I think Trump would just trump her like he did with Hillary, but at least theoretically she has likability advantage. And to put some of those numbers into context, there was only a 3-point gap between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in 2016. So anything above 3 points is basically an auto Trump at this point, because there was only a 3-point difference between Hillary, the anointed, coronated successor, and Trump, the outsider, when he won in 2016. So anything above 3 points, and Trump automatically basically wins. And I don't think that 12-point gap for Michelle would actually last in practical space. I think when the rubber meets the road, a lot of that would vanish. It's just the sort of aura of likability of the Obamas that I think puts her there.
I mean, I gotta be honest with you. Even if she is an Obama, I think people are really starting to get tired of things like political dynasties. Like just these families that have been in power for so long that they've basically become untouchable.
That was
Like,
one of the main criticisms of Hillary back in the day, that she was a dynasty politician.
People are really, really searching for some new blood to get into politics, because I feel like Obama was with something fresh, but I think at this point he's become such, so entwined with the swamp and the uniparty and the older politicians that he's just going to go along with whatever they say.
And let's face it, practically speaking, in terms of policy, Obama was always that. The only thing was he had a likable, youthful facade that made those establishment politics at least a little bit more palatable. But again, now we live in a world that is literally a gerontocracy. And I think that is a main criticism of all sides at this point, that I know I, as a millennial, and a bunch of people that I know that are Gen Xers or boomers, all feel that people above the age of retirement should not be the majority of people in politics, and yet they are. And it's kind of insufferable.
I mean, we really should institute some sort of age limit on politics, because I feel like once you get to a certain age, you really become disconnected from the plight of the average American. And that's certainly true with Congress and people who have been in power for decades and have amassed all this wealth and influence. Like, how are they supposed to understand the problems of the average working day American? I mean, these are the same people who kept saying that while people were suffering over the last few years, that the economy was roaring.
And how are they supposed to deal with any unconventional or unorthodox politics either? Because I think there's a major reason why the gerontocracy especially demonizes the shit out of any potential populist or libertarian paradigm shift. And that's because they simply don't understand it. It's too dissimilar from anything they're familiar with. And anything that dissimilar from things I'm familiar with must be the enemy, must be the devil, according to these people. And I don't think the overlap between the gerontocracy and the demonization of populism is a coincidence. I think it is in large part because every general, as the old saying goes, fights the last war. And so new warfare, new paradigms freaks them the fuck out. And at best, they don't understand it, and at worst, they actively demonize it, which of course academia is not helping because academia suffers from the same problem. But therein lies the connection between being, the children of the post-war consensus and being utterly incapable and unwilling of dealing with anything that isn't related to the post-war consensus.
Play.
Yep.
I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. I think it actually doesn't work that way. A lot of people think that they need Kamala Harris for the diversity vote, for the woke vote. I don't think so. I think they did that. I should say sort of. But it's not because people voted for Kamala Harris. The fact is, no one voted for Kamala Harris. She didn't get a single delegate. So why is she on the ticket? So that Joe Biden can say, look at me. I believe in diversity. And he gets his brownie points with white liberal women, right? But the white liberal women wouldn't vote for Kamala on her own. And as evidence of, they didn't. I'll stress it again. Kamala didn't get a single delegate. She did not get these votes. She's put on the ticket as a virtue signal. What do you think happens with Michelle Obama as the head of this ticket?
If Michelle Obama gets in, I honestly feel like a lot of this diversity and this shit's going to get worse, especially in politics.
Well, and again, there's the actual realpolitik issue of if Michelle Obama gets in, we're all going to be thinking that the First Lord is going to be doing the actual politicking, and therefore that by default, a vote for Michelle Obama is also by proxy a vote for Barack Obama to have a third and fourth term. It's a way around the term limits, actually, and I think that's going to be more of a realpolitik issue than anything else. Is going to be the issue of, okay, she's likable, okay, she's young, okay, we know that the Obama dynasty works and everything, blah blah, but are we honestly going to de facto let the term limit issue slip? Because de facto, we all know that at least potentially we would all be thinking, I bet Barack is giving her a lot of help and advice in this situation now, isn't he? That's honestly kind of scarier than any other alternative, because it would actually basically codify the idea of dynasty politics is okay as long as you can put a different face on it after the term limits are up. Breaking the term limits is all right as long as his wife is in charge, effectively.
Yeah. Hitting play again? And
Yep.
we should let it continue playing because we're almost at 44 minutes and we're not even halfway through.
Oh boy. Take it away, Tim.
Now, it may work because Obama Harris or, something may work because people like Obama. But don't forget what Barack Obama did. He brought Joe Biden on specifically because they were concerned people would not want to vote for a black man. Republicans show their true colors. Oh, that's right. I'm calling you out, Republicans. You show your true colors when you say Michelle Obama can win. Because it shows you're not racist. These Republicans are like, uh-oh, Michelle Obama is a charismatic woman, and she might be able to give Trump a run for his money. A lot of Republicans are saying that, and I'm like, guys, you got to understand, Democrats are racist. Like they are racist. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being cute. Let me do this. Okay, just so I'll pull this one up. This is from Yale. Democrats are racist. White liberals present themselves as less competent in interactions with African Americans. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that not a single Republican is racist or whatever. My point is, I do believe there is a substantial amount of people on the Democrat side and middle of the road people who aren't super political who are not going to vote for a black woman.
So I've actually noticed this myself in my own life, like black liberals genuinely do talk down more.
Yeah, it disgusts me. It's one of the main reasons why I am so vehemently anti-social justice. Because all it is essentially we feel guilty for the sins of our forebears, so we have to flip the script to make ourselves feel good, even though we know, or even though we think we're more competent than them by default, and therefore we'll still be in control somehow. I don't believe that, because I actually don't consider race to be a relevant factor for damn near anything. Short of a medical emergency, race is an utter non-factor in my head. So this we have to pay for the sins of our fathers by being paternalistic towards all the untermentioned now thing is so disgusting, especially when you consider statistics like the one he's bringing up here that basically says it literally is just a coddling, oh no, I'm sure you can do it, black person, I'm sure you can do it fine, I'll just be quietly in the background here in case you need anything, okay? It's fucking disgusting. And again, it's one of those things that I think we could actually meaningfully address if we got some younger blood in there, because most of the people in yours and my generation don't give a fuck about race because it's actually not that important. We were raised in the 90s when the actual live and let live attitude was at its peak. And if only we could bring it back. God damn it.
I mean, the live and let live attitude was really more a farce. I mean, these people never left right wingers alone. I mean, the entire 4 years, I just kept seeing ad after ad, and weaponizing the DOJ, going after the political opponents. When was it ever just let bygones be bygones?
Yeah, and again, in the 90s, there actually was, for a time being, at least the veneer of a live and let live attitude that we were allowed to grow up in that actually made us not give a shit about race or gender or any of that shit. It wasn't until like 2009 at the earliest, when people like Yvette Fallorca showed up, when all of a sudden feminism reared its ugly head again, intersectionality, critical race theory, critical, all the adjacent critical theories, birthed from the sulfurous pit of academia, and now here we are again. I would really rather just go back to not giving a fuck, because I still don't give a fuck about race, gender, or any other demographic information. I'm more interested in people as individuals and as people with, merits of any kind. Hello? Like, it's one of those situations where I feel like I'm going on Reddit and going, am I the asshole for actually not giving a fuck about demographic information? And apparently, according to academia, the answer is yes. Shouldn't be the answer, but it is apparently the answer in academia these days.
They didn't play again.
Yep.
First, you've got racists. And I'll tell you this, America is not racist. That's why they voted for Barack Obama twice. And it's not all about race. They liked him better as a better candidate. But I do believe there is going to be, I believe there's probably way more sexism, especially in minority communities. So where these, you think it's going to be white people. Nah, I think Michelle Obama would actually do a lot worse. You poll, people are going to say, oh, yeah, of course. We'll see what the numbers actually turn out to. Here's the New York Post has to say. Biden insisted Friday that he won't drop out of the race unless the Lord Almighty tells him. Get ready for a lot of Democrats start publicly praying. Not so much to God, though, as to Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and anyone else with a shot at getting through to Joe, who right now seems to be only listening to Hunter and Dr. Jill. The party's down-ballot candidates are freaking out, rightly fearing that having a manifestly unfit for office guy at the top of the ticket will not only hand Donald Trump the White House, but elect a Republican House and Senate. I'm here for it. Obama's top electioneer, David Axelrod, is already telling the party's donors to close their purses to any candidate who won't call for Biden to drop out. Fat cats like Abigail Disney are on board. Sticking with Biden will kill the party's turnout in swing states and districts, and outright Democratic civil war to oust him at the convention won't help either. Every day, the convention turns on Biden. The conversation turns on Biden's condition is a day that Dems lose. Take a look at this. We have a running list of Democrats calling for Joe Biden to drop out. Adam Smith, Jerry Nadler, Mark Takano, Joe Morrell, Angie Craig. She wrote a big thing. Mike Quigley. Here you go, is another interview. Seth Moulton, Raul Grijalva. You've got Julian Castro, former Housing and Urban Development Secretary, writing on X. He's got to go. He's got to go. Texas Rep. Lloyd Doggett, Tim Ryan. Look at this. And more to come. Right now, we have this from CNBC. Disney heiress, wealthy Democratic donors say they won't finance the party until Joe Biden drops out. This is from Thursday, July 4th, just last week. But we are seeing the revolt, the civil war against Joe Biden. Now,
well, here's the thing. Like, the money people are trying to pull out, but if they did replace him, that would technically be a new campaign. So all those campaign funds would have to be, reclaimed all over. And Kamala Harris could potentially do it because she's the vice president presumed nominee, and because it's Biden-Harris campaign. But like I said, Kamala Harris is awful, so they'd basically be throwing money down the toilet.
Yeah, the issue is there's simply no one to replace him with that the establishment would actually prefer. There are a couple people on the grassroots left that you might be able to consider in, but one of those people is probably going to be running with Trump if he's smart and runs with a Trump Gabbard ticket. And by the way, I want to say flat out that I disagree with Tim on the sexism thing. If there is sexism, it's only because feminism bigged up feminism reversed itself. But as far as if a likable, competent woman like a Tulsi Gabbard showed up, I don't think anyone would really care, because even the really bigoted people believe in the prospect of one of the good ones. And if you run, quote unquote, one of the good ones, people will get behind it, just like they did with Obama. It's just a matter of, so far, none of the women who have actually run for president have been one of the good ones, quote unquote. But yeah, there is no one that the establishment would be willing to replace Biden with. And the only people that would actually stand a chance at winning are on the grassroots left or are ex-Democrats because they were basically kicked out, like a Andrew Yang or Tulsi Gabbard, which sucks to be you, DNC, but Schadenfreude is all I got to say there.
Yeah, I mean, they backed themselves in the position, like I mentioned before. They could have picked a new candidate. I mean, really, they should have, committed to him being a one-term president after all the gaps of the last 4 years. But really, tried to run him again.
They were literally like, well, we could run a corpse, or we could run somebody else, but all the alternatives are less likable than a corpse. So I guess we're going with the corpse candidate.
All right, can I play again?
Yep.
Now from yesterday morning, several top House Democrats say Biden should step aside during leadership call. This is what Batya Ungar-Sargon calls the anti-Biden coup. Writing in the opening paragraph, something amazing has happened in the 10 days since Joe Biden and Donald Trump faced off in a presidential debate in Atlanta. Biden has come in for the kind of coordinated onslaught from the mainstream media and Democratic power and the Democratic power brokers that is usually reserved for Republicans. Biden's performance allowed the audiences of CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, and The New York Times their first glimpse of something that journalists at those outlets had worked hard to conceal. That Biden slurs his speech, that his thoughts are erratic, his glassy gaze unfocused, his memory deeply flawed. You know what worries me the most? We all knew this, right? We all knew this. Here we go. Joe Biden tweets, "Let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm the sitting president of the United States. I'm the nominee of the Democratic Party. I am staying in this race." Shout out to Greg, 16676935420 on X, who's like, a very well-known parody account. What does he have? Like 1 million? What does he have? Just about 1 million followers. How are you tweeting when you are on stage in Wisconsin right now? Uh-huh. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, Joe Biden is not running his own social media account.
Also, Tim Pool's Biden impression gives me life. I don't know why that made me laugh so much, but it is glorious. But furthermore, this conversation in a competently run Democratic Party, again, assuming I were an establishment Democrat for 5 seconds, in a competently run Democratic Party, this should have happened 4 years ago when he ran in 2020. They honestly should have just bit the bullet and let Bernie run, is what they should have done. And Bernie, to his discredit, should have forced them to make him the nominee, but that's neither here nor there. This should have happened 4 years ago, and this is yet another problem of the gerontocracy being the de facto party that is in charge. Because the thing about old people is they take their sweet time to come to new ideas or new paradigms. So a conversation that should have happened in private 4 years ago is now being forced to happen publicly 4 years down the line. And if they weren't out of touch ivory tower gerontocrats, they could have forestalled this whole situation by running someone else originally. But they didn't, and now we're left with a situation of either they can run the corpse and he will lose, or they can run someone less likable than the corpse and they will lose, but at least they'll be establishment candidates, or they can give the base of their own party a bone and run someone who is both likable and more anti-establishment left, or they can just bite the bullet and deal with the fact that Trump is going to be the nominee, probably with Tulsi as his running mate, if he has any sense whatsoever. But they're not going to do any of those sensible things, so it's a choice of the corpse or someone less likable than a corpse that will enrage their own party base at the time. Oops. Click. E?
Yeah,
Wait.
sorry, I was reading something. My bad.
Okay.
But yeah, it really just does seem to me that the Democrat Party is really all about the collective political elites that have gotten into power and are desperate to stay in power. And Joe Biden, I remember reading an article that said that they just need Joe Biden to just like physically occupy the space of president, while a bunch of people in the background that nobody elected or even knows basically operate the administration. And it really does seem that that's been the case over the last 4 years.
And let's be honest, it's true of the Republican Party too. The only difference is the populist wing of the Republican Party has an actual representative in the form of Trump. I think once Trump is out of office, you'll see exactly the same level of establishment backstabbery to keep more populists out of office that we're getting from the Democrats right now. Because at the end of the day, the establishment of both parties doesn't really see much of a difference between each other. It's only the base of each party that is different. It's only the anti-establishment wings of each party that are different. And only then, because right now there is no Bernie Sanders, there is no Tulsi Gabbard on the left for the anti-establishment wing of the Democrats to rally around. I think if there were, we'd be seeing this same thing going on with the Democrat Party, and same in the inverse if there wasn't a Trump on the right for the populists of the Republican Party to rally around. I think that if it were only establishment candidates, we would see this kind of mismanagement happening on both sides.
Just a quick tangent. I saw on social media one of the things that was going around is about Trump's wife Melania, about why she wasn't there on the campaign trail with him, and she actually posted a response. It was actually a really brilliant clapback. What she says is I believe I don't have it right in front of me, but if I remember it correctly, it said Donald can take care of himself. Unlike Joe and Joe Biden, he doesn't need me to hold his hand everywhere. I have a young son just out of high school. I choose to mother him and not my husband.
Holy shit, she dropped the nuke.
Yep, and that's really a lot of what's going on. Like Joe Biden, like they had a rally after the debate, and Joe Biden was basically talking to Joe like he was a little child. And when the debate was over, you could see her helping him down the stairs because you could see that if he tried to make it down like 4 steps by himself, he would have most likely have fallen over.
Yeah, I saw that. The whole "good for you, Joey. You answered all the questions, derp," and it really was one of the most pathetic things I think I've ever seen in politics of any country.
Yeah, and so like that was really a brilliant statement from Melania. That probably did more to help the campaign than actually being there.
Which, I mean, also good for her to know that, like, well, he doesn't need me to help him. I have a son who, just got out of high school. I need to, make sure he's doing okay. That's actually not even just a good optics win. That's just a straight up real. That's a real world answer to a real world question. It's not a politicized answer to a politicized question. It's like,
Yeah,
no, my husband can take care of himself. My recently graduated son needs help getting off to college or wherever the hell he's going after high school. So I'm doing that, which is both based and correct and also a real world answer that someone who wasn't a politician might give, which is something that I wish we could see on both sides of the aisle, because one of the things that I hate is the politico speak on both sides. Like, can we get someone who is an actual goddamn human being, please, and isn't a flesh teleprompter at this point, basically?
yeah. Trump will have his like prescripted speeches, but I feel like the more you give him time and room to talk, the more he'll just say what's actually on his mind.
He'll improv, yeah.
And people always say that that's a bad thing about Trump, especially on the left. They'll say that it's uncouth, he's lacking decorum, and I'm looking like,
Fuck your decorum. No, being a real person is good.
yeah, like this is the first time we've had a president who we actually can know what's on his mind instead of just speaking through the White House press secretary and the various interns and stuff that are
Mhm.
responsible for a social media account. And speaking of press secretary, holy crap, um, the diversity hire Creed Jean-Pierre is having a hell of a time, beating back the press. Now that they're actually trying to be somewhat adversarial to the Biden campaign, now that she actually has to deal with a contentious press, she's basically drowning.
Well, I kind of feel bad for her because nobody prepared her for this. Like, they prepared her for the softball questions about the ice cream that the Biden presidency has been getting so far. But on the other hand, maybe someone somewhere should have considered that maybe the press should do their goddamn jobs and that we should be prepared for them to do their goddamn jobs as they're supposed to, rather than just being stenographers for us. It
Yeah,
goes back. It fundamentally goes back to what we were saying earlier about Dev with the normative institutions thing, and why the whole "oh, he broke decorum" is even a criticism, or they think it's a criticism of him. It's almost like they consider the moral and normative authority of the establishment, of the institution, to be so sacrosanct that they can't even believe someone might oppose it for its own sake. Someone might be sick of norms and institutions and decorum and want to see them torn down, want to see them reacted to like a normal goddamn human being.
yeah. That's the thing about Dev, but Dev like can see all the bad thing that Biden's done and all of the blatantly obvious corruption, but because there's not basically a file on Biden's corruption, like for him, it doesn't appear to count.
Yeah,
And like,
because normative institution equals good, populism and anarchy equals bad. Derp.
it, Dev like doesn't like Trump because of, I believe, when he made the phone call to Georgia asking about the election results and asking for a recount, and he phrased it in a way that wasn't very good. But I
Can we
feel like,
see if there are any more votes for me or something along those
yeah.
lines?
But here's the thing: I don't care about any of that. Trump is effective at being the president of the United States. Like, here's the if I'm sh- if I'm shot and I need someone to operate on me, I want the best person that I can get. Now, I don't care if this person has like 80 crimes, that he's being charged with, from like money laundering to being a serial strangler. If this guy can do the job and save my life, get him out of jail and get him in the operating room.
But and that's the other thing though, that the thing that floors me. If there were actual like meaningful substantive crimes that Trump were found guilty of, I might be persuaded to, see that side of the issue. But the thing is, the only thing I can compare to what they're doing to Trump is when they got Al Capone off of his tax returns. And I'm like, you're literally treating the fact that he didn't dot every I and cross every T on a piece of paperwork as though he mass murdered 500 people. And apparently there's no part of their brains, or in, using Dev as the example, he would rather Shanghai Trump over the most minor of minor offenses because it goes against normative institutions than treat actual substantive crimes accordingly. And I don't understand it. It's like, sure,
Well,
Al Capone might have not done his tax returns right, but if he, if that's the only thing he did wrong, then in my head that means he gets to get away with it, because treating a clerical error as though it's a mass murder trial is ludicrous to an absurd degree.
well, I'm not really surprised by Dev's opinion on this, because here's the thing: Dev doesn't have to deal with the sting of the failures of the Biden administration. Dev is Canadian. Like, he is separate from all of this. And it also really pissed me off when, he complained about Trump saying that we should stop, funding this, pseudo forever war in Ukraine and try to find a way to end the war. Or Dev says, no, I believe that we should be funding it. Motherfucker, it's our money, not yours. You are a fucking Canadian. Stop talking about how American taxpayer dollars should be spent.
And I would almost blame some of his like normative institutional bias on the like intrinsic politeness of Canadians. Like maybe there's something in the Canadian psyche that is so pro decorum that that's why he has that bias. But then again, there are people like Karen Strawn and Alison Seaman who are Canadian, and they are the most based women on the fucking planet. So even giving Dev the benefit of the okay, he's a Canadian, so of course they're gonna want a polite solution to everything. Doubt, like, no, fuck you, Dev. It's not you being Canadian. It's just you being a absolute cuck to the concept of normative institutions, and it's sickening.
Yeah. Let's hit play because we've
Joe
already been
Biden
over an
is
hour.
not here. He's not in charge. He doesn't know how this stuff works. Batya Ungar tweets, we are at the enacting a coup against a duly elected leader stage of defending democracy, I see. Yep. Look, man, I am
say it
fed
out
up.
loud. Oh my god. When you just say it out loud, I can't even keep a straight face.
I mean, no lies detected. That's literally what they're talking about doing.
But it's the bald face just saying it out loud. I can't even. Oh my god. We will ruin democracy for the sake of democracy. Lol. I, sorry. Just one of those things that makes me want to laugh hysterically at the void.
with the Democratic elites and the establishment, these people are abject evil. I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know what to say, but these people are evil. They lie, cheat, and steal every day. And perhaps that's always been the case. And perhaps it's only now, because of the internet, as I often say, that we're able to see beyond the veil and understand who the man behind the curtain really is, what they've been doing this whole time. We think we know what's true. We don't know what's true. The media has always just reported what the establishment machine wants them to report. It's probably been that way since Kennedy or even earlier.
I don't think
From
it's
Axios, Biden refused.
I don't think it's the internet making things more available. I think it literally is old age, because entirely apart from the fact that these people are evil, which is, take it or leave it as you may, they're also incompetent and stupid. And again, maybe I'm a weirdo here, but honestly, someone who is competently evil is less dangerous than someone who is incompetent and stupid as well as evil. Like, again, maybe it's because I have a bias in favor of people or characters like, John Kramer, Jigsaw, and Hannibal Lecter, and Alistair the Radio Demon, and so forth. But like, at least a competently evil person is competently evil, whereas this is full tilt. It's not that you're evil, it's that you're sloppy and stupid that infuriates me more so even than your evils.
I
Literally.
would disagree. I feel like someone who's competent and evil would be easier for them to remain in power, continue to do evil things. Someone who's incompetent and evil would be easier to defeat.
But here's the thing about the competent evil ones, like your Palpatines or your Azula from Avatar: The Last Airbender. At least they're good about putting a happy face on things, so they know that no matter how cruel they want to be, they have to at least give people the bread and circuses, at least let people have fun in the shadow of the evil empire. But the stupid people who are literally doing things in the name of like moral righteousness will ruin everything that brings you joy just because they think it's immoral for you to have joy, rather than the evil person who at least knows well enough that as long as we keep the people, fat and happy and stupid, then we can get away with our evil ends. At least evil people who are competent have standards they won't sink below, but evil people who are stupid and incompetent will honestly convince themselves that they've been morally righteous all along, and therefore they will destroy your happiness with the moral permission of their own consciousness, their own conscience, as C.S. Lewis said. The moral busybodies, who are at this point so geriatric and stupid that they can't help but say the quiet part out loud because they don't even remember that they're supposed to keep it quiet.
Well, there is a new generation of moral busybodies coming up, and unfortunately for us, they're insane.
Yeah, but again, maybe them being insane makes them preferable to deal with than people who are just so out of touch and stupid and geriatrically slow-witted that they can't help but say the quiet part out loud and destroy things you like on purpose.
Possibly, but I also feel like the insane people are going to destroy shit we like on purpose, and actively are.
Yeah,
As
yeah.
we can see all throughout entertainment.
Yeah, it's not like the gender studies 101 graduates are going to be any better, but at least we know where they stand. Whereas because the stupid and incompetent don't even know where they stand anymore because of their geriatricness, it's impossible to actually believe half the shit they do. Whereas if you know the Frankfurt School Gramscian stuff, you can tell what a social justice warrior is going to do. They're going to do what the Frankfurt School and all the critical theory suggests they do. With Biden, though, he might just hit the nuclear button because he left a book sitting on it for too long or something. I don't fucking know.
Can they play?
Yep.
Is to take cognitive test, denies he's losing to Trump. Well, if he's denying that he's losing to Trump, that may be all the cognitive test you need because the polls show it plain as day. The donors are saying it. But you know what this is? Joe Biden doesn't care about any of that. Joe Biden cares about his family. I can respect that to a certain degree. And Joe Biden's son, Hunter, doesn't like that he's being convicted of crimes, and he doesn't want his dad to drop out. Neither does Dr. Jill. Jill, oh man, she's the first lady. She doesn't want to give up that power. She will rip it from whoever she has to keep it. These people are despicable. They're the worst kind of people. Joe Biden, in his demented state, and I think it's fair to say demented, right? And the reason, and this is important, right? So there were some news stories where they said he doesn't have dementia. He's got age-related cognitive decline, and I'm like, okay, let me pause you right there. Okay,
Distinction
I
without a
understand the difference
difference.
between
Anyone?
age-related cognitive decline and dementia. Now, if you're saying that he sometimes stumbles over his words and he's a little bit forgetful, that's not dementia. That's just age-related cognitive decline. But when he confuses the names of countries and wanders the wrong way off stage, he is showing signs of dementia. Now, some are speculating maybe he has Parkinson's because a Parkinson's specialist met with the White House doctor or something like that. I don't know. I think we know that he's suffering from something upstairs. I think he may have a moderate, a slight form of dementia. When he's on stage, okay, Donald Trump walks on stage for the debate. He walks off stage, right? Joe Biden, at various instances over the past few years, has walked the wrong direction. There was one where he's on stage and he turns around looking at the screen in the backdrop and starts talking to it.
He doesn't know where he is.
That is not age-related mental decline.
I saw one video where he stopped speaking, turns to his right, sticks out his hands for a handshake, and nobody's there, and he's just standing there confused.
Which means either he's fucking seeing zygopomps because even the supernatural forces that rule over death are waiting for him to finally just give up, or he's hallucinating, or he literally does not know where he is and is getting lost in his own memories, as people with dementia or Alzheimer's regularly do. In which case, are we absolutely sure that this is the guy we want in charge of the nuke button? Because he might end up randomly one day just pulling a DD from Dexter's laboratory and going, ooh, shiny red button, click, and then it's all over.
Not only that, but you got to think about how this appears on the world stage. I mean, this is freaking embarrassing. People talked about Trump embarrassing America on the world stage, but when they see this weak, feeble old man who can barely walk and doesn't even know where he is, the other countries are going to start licking their chops, thinking now is the time to take whatever.
Yeah, if I were Xi Jinping, I would literally be organizing an invasion force right now.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump mentioned it in the debate with Vladimir Putin, saying he took land under Bush, he took land under Obama, he didn't take any land under Donald Trump, and then he invades Ukraine under Biden.
And add in the Afghanistan nonsense, which didn't happen under Trump and did happen under Biden. So,
hold on. Speaking of which, during the debate, Joe Biden literally says that under his administration, he had no soldiers die under his watch anywhere in the world. which is an out and out lie. I don't know if he thought nobody would catch him lying or if he just was so demented that he genuinely thought that, but that is one of the most disgusting moments in the entire debate to me.
Yeah, and I just the thing of it was you could see Biden struggling to even talk. Even with a microphone right in front of him and speaking directly into it, his voice sounded quiet and raspy and whispery, which, how in the hell are you going to talk to the strongman dictators like the Ayatollahs in the theocratic Muslim countries, or, President Xi, or the Zhongs? how are you going to talk to any of these strongman dictators when you literally look like the ghost of someone's great-grandfather on stage right now, Joe?
He literally looks like Jacob Marley minus the chains.
Honestly, I think that he'd be better with the chains, because at least the chains would be holding him up. Would make him hold still and stay in the same place long term.
Another one of my favorite moments from the debates is when he's talking about, Roe v. Wade and it being overturned. Well, actually, two moments. One is when he just out and out lies and says Donald Trump would sign a national abortion ban, even though literally like 3 minutes earlier, Trump said that he wanted it back to the states and wouldn't sign a ban. And
Was
then,
in favor of the exceptions, et cetera, and so on, yeah.
yeah, and then later he's talking about why women need abortion, and he mentions like women being sexually assaulted by migrants. I'm like, did he actually just admit that on camera?
Yep, he said the quiet part out loud. The part that he wasn't supposed to say. The part that makes him look like a humanitarian monster. Yep.
Yeah. Also, he said women needed abortions because they get essayed by their brothers and sisters, and I'm like, sisters?
That's literally what Trump said. He said he believed in the exceptions for incest, rape, and where it inconveniences the life of the mother, I believe is what he said.
No, but don't you think Biden said that women needed abortions because they were getting essayed by their sisters.
But short of some acolyte type nonsense, how the fuck did they pregnate each other, Joe?
Yeah, that was a massive brain moment for him.
Like, witchcraft, immaculate conception aside, how the fuck did that happen, Joe?
Yeah, honestly, whenever I'm bored, I just watch Razorfist's stream of the debate because it's freaking hilarious.
Oh, Razor. I love Razor. I love him so much.
Yeah. But I'm going to get back to the video.
Mm-hmm.
That is, Joe Biden doesn't know where he is. When you see his hands outstretched in front of him with his fingers grasped like this, that is a sign of dementia. When you see the angry outbursts, these are symptoms typically associated with Alzheimer's and dementia. And it's sad, really. The rage, I'll tell you where it comes from. It's how you read about it, Google it. They say that the simplest way it's been explained to me by an expert in the field. You know that feeling you get when something's on the tip of your tongue and you're like, I can't think of it. It's frustrating. You're like, what was that band? Oh, I can remember the song. I can't remember the name. And you're like, how do I search for this? It's a little frustrating. Imagine if that was every sentence, every time you tried to speak, you knew you have something to say, but you can't grasp it. It gets so frustrating. You get angry. And that's what we see with Joe Biden when he yells at that union worker a couple of years ago, I don't work for you. Remember when that reporter was asking him a question and he just started snapping, repeating the same thing over and over again? A lot of people say that's indicative of dementia. He's forgetting. He's getting angry. His brain's not working. It could be Alzheimer's. It could be dementia. Age-related cognitive decline would be like him going, you know what? What was the name? I can't remember that. That's not what he's doing. When he's wandering off stage with his hands, the worrying thing to me is when his fingers are twisted. Look at his hands when he's doing the cornholio and walking. You can see his muscles are contracted in his hands in a strange way. I'm telling you. Axios says President Biden flatly ruled out taking a cognitive test or submitting to an independent medical examination to determine if he has any neurological conditions, insisting he has had the energy and ability to run for president and defeat Trump. In an interview with ABC News' George Stephanopoulos, the president...
Donald Trump has admitted to taking multiple cognitive tests and passing them, showing his fitness for president. The fact that Joe Biden refuses to take one, honestly...
Yeah, the lady doth protest too much, and by the lady, I mean Jill, of course. Also, the rage, relating to what Tim said here, the rage is indicative also of a loss of inhibitions. I mean, we've all run into the angry drunk, and this is essentially a similar equivalent of that, because the part of your brain that gets disinhibited when you're drunk is also the part of your brain that often gets disinhibited when you're going through this kind of neurodegeneration. So if he's angry in this way because of cognitive decline of any kind, it's because that's who he really is at bottom. He's one of those people who would be an angry drunk if they ever let him have alcohol, which I assume they don't.
Yeah. But while he was up on the debate stage, like Joe Biden also repeated several hoaxes that have already been debunked regarding President Trump, like the very fine people on both sides comment.
How
That's
many
already
times do
been
we have to
debunked.
show the clip?
But there's also a debunked story where that said that a general had told Biden that Trump had called soldiers suckers and losers, which was not true. But Joe Biden kept repeating it on the debate stage. So it's
I'm
like,
honestly surprised you didn't mention the piss dossier.
I feel like that one would have been a bit too ridiculous.
Even for demented Joe?
Well, here's the thing: like he did debate prep, which even though obviously didn't help all that much, it didn't help with his mental state. But I feel like it did prepare him on what things he should and should not mention.
Sweet implacable Hecate, if this is him after a week's worth of debate prep, what would he have been like off the cuff? My God.
Yeah. So I honestly don't know, like, what a second Joe Biden term would even be look like, because nobody would respect the man as president, because it'd be very clear that he's not the one in charge.
He would die after like 6 months, and then we would have to deal with President laughs at legalizing marijuana in 2012.
Back to the video.
Yep.
Avoided the verbal flubs and unfinished sentences that defined his disastrous debate performance last week. Really? Or maybe it's an edited interview. However, more importantly, as many on the right have explained it, they've said it was a really great interview. Joe Biden didn't do anything to the point where they could justify removing him in this interview, but he certainly didn't do anything to calm people down. So he does an interview. People are still concerned over his mental state, but it wasn't such a disastrous interview where they could pull him out immediately. If he did this interview and it was as bad or worse than the debate, he's gone off the ticket. But it was okay. So everyone's like, okay, he's still tired, making excuses, but he didn't lose it. The funny thing is, in this interview, Biden's like, oh, I was traveling around the world and they advised me not to do it. And then Stephanopoulos is like, he's like, you had 6 whole days of rest before this debate. Was that enough? And Biden's like, well, I had a cold. And I'm like, he had a cold. No, he didn't. This is how he always is. But I appreciate him giving that response. You know why? Because you got these videos of people clapping and cheering for him at these events. And let him do it. Let him do it. He had a cold. Give him the excuses. Let them keep Joe Biden on the ticket. See if I care. Now, look, I got no guarantees. You got no guarantees that Donald Trump can actually win even against Joe Biden. And right now, I think the one thing you got to be careful of, and I need all of you to say this, to tweet this, to talk about this. They run this news. Oh, we got to get Joe Biden out. He's the worst. And you start to believe, oh man, if they keep Joe Biden on the ticket, we can't lose. And then what happens? Then come November, Trump supporters are like, we couldn't possibly lose against this guy. And then they
Ballot printer go burr.
Because there's going
again.
Yeah, I mean, they've already been some suspicious things. Like, I don't know if you've heard, but there was a bill that was introduced basically requiring proof of citizenship for voting in federal elections, and the Democrats are all standing against it. Why? I can't possibly imagine. Like, this is the worst thing that they could possibly do, because right now people's trust in elections are extremely low after what happened in 2020. So what they need to do is make people trust in elections again. But they're all standing against this, which is making people trust in elections even less. And if people don't trust elections, when the result come in, nobody's going to accept it.
again, the lady doth protest too much. And in all seriousness, everyone on this channel knows that I am the token lefty here. But if Trump somehow by ballot printer go burr or whatever you want to say, loses to this man, loses to Biden, loses to a man who I swear to God will not make it past 6 months of his second term if he is reelected. I refuse to believe that that is a thing. Because even if every single person who I am not aware of was the biggest TDS sufferer in the history of history, you cannot tell me that people would rather a Trump who is at least compos mentis rather than a Biden who is fucking losing his goddamn mind before our very eyes. And again, I genuinely believe that he will not make it past 6 months in 2025. And if I am wrong, may I be struck by lightning here and now. Because here's the thing, even if his day-to-day isn't as bad as it was in that debate, the thing with dementia is there are good days and there are bad days. And once the bad days, like the incident in the debate, start happening, they get more and more frequently. Like, they get precipitously more frequent as time goes on. So even if his average day-to-day isn't as bad as that debate, once it starts like that, we have maybe a year's worth of time before it does become an almost daily occurrence. And it only has to happen once with the nuclear button for it to ruin everything. So I call bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, we are placing ourselves in a very precarious position if we reelect Joe Biden because China's starting to make moves. Russia's already invaded. I feel like China's waiting to see what's going to happen, in the election, if they're not, whether or not they're going to make a move on Taiwan. I feel like if Joe Biden gets back in again, like he's even more frail and feeble and, out of it than he was when he began this term. So I feel like if Joe Biden gets reelected, China's going to almost immediately make a move to attack Taiwan. And the president needs to be quick and he needs to be able to act at a moment's notice as things change in the world. And they came out and admitted that Joe Biden has hours of the day where he, capable, and hours of the day where he's just completely out of it.
Which means that whenever those hours are, there is an entire window for anyone who feels like toppling a tyrant to go tyrant toppling. And if that happens to be after about 8 o'clock at night, because that is when they said the non-compos mentis time was, we are all royally fucked. Or I guess I should say imperially fucked, because if President Xi gets his way, then the new empire of China should be starting any day now.
He didn't play.
Be a shadow campaign, just like there was in 2020. What does that mean? I don't know. Ask Time Magazine. I don't know what they mean by shadow campaign. Let me pull that one up because they love to claim there's no conspiracy or whatever. I don't know, man. Is Time Magazine conspiracy theory? The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election, which they refer to as a conspiracy behind the scenes that curtailed the protests according to the residents from CEOs to help stop Donald Trump. Time Magazine says there was a conspiracy to stop Donald Trump, and they call it a shadow campaign. Is that American democracy? These people are gloating that they have burned our institutions to the ground. I look over at France, and Marine Le Pen's party is the largest party in the country now, winning every single district except for Paris. But because of a coalition from the left, they are not the majority power. Well, that's Parliament. Parliament.
Did you see what happened with the French election?
Yes, I did. It is la bullshit, is what it is.
That was absolutely disgusting. Like, Like if I was the French people, like it'd be time for revolution number 2.
Yeah, no, seriously. Vive la résistance would be my battle cry if I were a Frenchman. Granted, if I were a Frenchman, that would probably be the default battle cry anyway, but, the French are the French. Which, by the way, speaking of the French being the French, the last time something like this happened, it got very guillotine-shaped very quickly, so, just going to quietly point that out and then advance very, very rapidly in the other direction. just saying. The last
When you
time the
hear
noblest got ideas about their station, the people got rather cross with them. Just saying.
the funny thing is, I saw a tweet, or it was just a tweet referring to an article about this film director who wanted to know if they were going to make a sequel to their movie, a film that I hadn't heard before, but they said that they wouldn't because Paris sucks now.
Yep. So long for the City of Lights. And I mean, how? Notre Dame got burned, so you can't even make the, bells of Notre Dame argument anymore, hardly. I think they might have fixed it now where they ring again, but still, for a long time there, even the bells of Notre Dame were not ringing. So, oops. So much for the soul of the city.
Yeah, it's like Macron actively kneecapped his own party so that they could get a coalition government actively divert what was obviously the will of the people.
And here's the other thing, and I will say the same thing to the current Labor government over there. The more you jury rig things to forestall the paradigm shift, the harder that reset is going to have to be, and the harder and more radicalized people will be in their positions when it comes time. So you don't want to concede to reform now, but you're gonna want to by the end. There will come a day where you will beg to have Trump and Farage and Le Pen back. Trust me, because the last time something like this happened, it actually was Weimar Germany, and we all remember what happened then, don't we?
All right, I'm gonna hit play, and let's keep it playing because we're already at over an hour and a half.
Yep. Okay.
Is not the same as winner-take-all elections. The way it works in France, and actually I should say this, the way parliamentary systems tend to work, I don't know about France specifically, is that if you have an election in your area and you have, let's say that there are 10 representatives that are going to be sent from certain districts. If your party gets 60% of the vote and the other party gets 40, six of those people will be your party, 4 will be the other. They don't do winner take all. They actually say, okay, here's how many seats we're going to give your party based on how much percentage of vote you got. And I suppose that makes a lot of sense. It does. The problem is you end up in situations with France where if a corrupt party brings in more and more people who oppose the interests of the country, it's impossible to win. Now, that's true, too, for the U.S., but the Founding Fathers knew we needed protection for minority groups in this country, which is...
Oh, dear. We seem to be having technical difficulties. I assume he will be back as soon as he sorts them out. But in the meantime, I'm not really sure what to... Okay, I guess I'll pick up from where Tim left off there. Okay, never mind. He's back.
Yeah, I'm back. I don't know what happened. It said something happened and I got kicked out, and so I guess the video's gone now too. But we've been going for an hour and a half. So, is there anything more you want to say?
The best advice I can give the establishment right now is, as counterintuitive as it is, let the people you don't like win for the short term in the future. Because the more you jury rig things to forestall them, the harder the reset is going to have to be. And the more you isolate and radicalize people, the harsher that reset is also going to have to be. Like I said, the thing that ruined Weimar Germany, Dev, was not the populist anarchy. The thing that ruined Weimar Germany was the constant jury-rigging and forestalling of the anarchistic populist will of the people being thwarted over and over again. The thing that led to Nazism and or fascism was not the populist wing. It was the populist wing's desires being thwarted repeatedly. So if you really don't want another Weimar Germany situation, but this time in the West, you need to get the fuck over yourselves and put the people you don't like in charge for a little bit. At best, it will be temporary, and at worst, you'll have to deal with a new paradigm. But trust me, you're going to want to deal with that new paradigm rather than what the alternative is if you keep thwarting them over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And also, here's the thing, they can only twist the institution so much in their attempt to maintain power before it eventually breaks. Like if the elites try to hold on to power this bad and corrupt things this much just to do it, eventually another civil war, unfortunately, might just be inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that to happen, but people have a breaking point of how much they're willing to take. And if you just keep denying what is obviously the will of the American people through one means or another, eventually they're going to snap.
And it's especially funny when you consider how much this is the case all over the Western world. It's the same case in Britain, it's the same case in France, it's the same case in Germany, it's the same case in the fucking Netherlands with Geert Wilders and them. So, do you want there to be a worldwide equivalent of the Nazis, folks? Do you want there to be a worldwide equivalent of old Uncle Benny? Because I don't want those things. I just want populism and libertarianism to be the new world, the new establishment for a while. But it seems like the only options we're going to get are the hard reset option. And the hard reset option never goes well for those that forestalled it for very long. Just pointing it out.
Yeah. All right, buddy. I've been Mr. E.
I've been Dalton Mortimer, the Authenticator, and we've been the Duality of Man. Don't get black-pilled, folks. But cheers, guys.
Goodbye, everybody.